All right, so Noah's Ark, Genesis chapters 5 through 9. And if you want to turn with me, Genesis chapter 5, and we'll start out. And I'll start reading with you, and then this is the written account of Adam's line. This is the book of the generations of Adam. And in the day God created man, in likeness of God, made he him, male and female. He created them and blessed them, and called their name Adam in the day when they were created. And Adam lived 130 years and had a son in his own likeness, in his own image. He named him Seth. And Seth was born. Adam lived 800 years. After that, had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Adam lived 930 years, and then he died. When Seth became 105 years old, he became the father of Enosh. And Seth then lived 807 years more and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Seth lived 912 years and died. All right, so here I have this chart, and I'm going to keep going with the genealogy here from Adam going to Noah. And as in Genesis chapter 5, verse 3, as God starts explaining it, and I'll use this chart as best I can to show it to you. Right here we have the creation of Adam, and as it says in the Bible, when Adam was 130 years old, he had a son in his own likeness, in his own image, and he named him Seth. And Seth was born, and Adam lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Adam lived 930 years, and then he died. When Seth lived 905 years, he became the father of Enosh. And after he became the father of Enosh, Seth lived 807 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Seth lived 912 years. And then he died. When Enosh lived 90 years, he became the father of Kenan. And after he became the father of Kenan, Enosh lived 815 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enosh lived 905 years, and then he died. When Kenan had lived 70 years, he became the father of Malhiel. And after he became the father of Malhiel, Kenan lived 840 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Kenan lived 910 years. When Malhiel was 65 years old, he became the father of Jared. And after he became the father of Jared, Malhiel lived 830 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Altogether, he lived 895 years, and then he died. When Jared was 162 years old, he became the father of Enoch. And after he became the father of Enoch, Jared lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Jared lived 962 years. When Enoch lived 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah. After that, he became the father of Methuselah. Enoch walked with God 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enoch walked with God, and it was no more because God took him away. So God took him up to heaven. He didn't die, but so his total time here on earth was 365 years. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he became the father of Lamech. So when Methuselah was 187 years old, he became the father of Lamech. And after that, he became the father of Lamech. Methuselah lived 782 years after that. And other sons and daughters, altogether, Methuselah lived 969 years. So as we can say, he lived the longest. Now, when Lamech lived 182 years, he had a son named him Noah. Noah, the man of the hour here. And he will come. And so anyway, when Lamech was 180 years old, he had a son, and he named him Noah. And he said, he will comfort us in labor and painful toil of our hands caused by the ground the Lord has cursed. After that Noah was born, Lamech lived 595 years. And other sons and daughters, altogether Lamech lived 777 years. And then he died. And then in verse 32, as it says, after Noah was 500 years old, and he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now as we move on, after Genesis chapter 5, we go into chapter 6, which is titled The Flood in the Bible, and we move into Genesis chapter 6, verse 5. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination and thought of the human heart was evil all the time. Now let me say that everyone was bad. Everything was going on at this time period was people were just wanting to harm each other. They were greedy, and it was probably a very violent time. And when you can see that all of humanity was this way, you can just imagine how God must have felt when He created man it was something that He was going to love and He cares for, and then to see them nothing but evil. I mean, how would that make you feel if you had a bunch of children and then they all became evil children? And that's kind of the situation that was going on here. In Genesis 6:6, the Lord regretted that He made human beings on earth, and His heart was deeply troubled. So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I have regret that I have made them. Genesis 6:8. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. This is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark with cypress wood. Make rooms in it and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you're to build it. The ark is to be 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the side of the ark and make the lower, middle, and upper decks. Now, if you look at this illustration here, you can just see how big Noah's Ark was. Also, from the last photo, how it was compared to a football field. And this one here compared to, say, the San Maria, the Wyoming, the Titanic, or the Queen Mary II. And it's very interesting, but it's very big. As we go back to Genesis chapter 6, verse 17, God said, I'm going to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Every creature that has breath of life in it, everything on earth will perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you, to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten, and store it away as food for you and for them. Now Noah did everything just as God commanded him, as it says in Genesis chapter 6, verse 22. So he followed every God's instructions exactly to the T. And this is the big part of the story where you're seeing that with blind faith, he said the guy never seen rain or floods before. He said to build this ark, And he was told to do it, and he listened, and to the T, every specific dimension, he didn't change, which is also a testament to that we need to follow exactly what God says, to not alter. God said make that ark, they make the exact size. Noah didn't change or alter it. When God gives instructions on how to be a Christian, how to live our lives, we have to look at it the same way. God's giving us exact specifications, and we need to follow them exactly, just as Noah did. As the story moves along here in Genesis chapter 7, verse 11, in the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the second month, on that day, all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. And the rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On that very day, Noah and his sons Shem, Ham, Japheth, together with his wife and the wives of his 3 sons, entered the ark. They had with them every wild animal according to its kind, all the livestock according to their kind, every creature that moves along the ground according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind, everything with wings. Pairs of all creatures that have the breath of life in them came to Noah and entered the ark. The animals in were male and female, and of every living thing, as God had commanded Noah. The Lord shut him in. For 40 days the flood kept coming on earth, and as the waters increased, they lifted the ark high above the earth. The waters rose and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the water. They rose greatly on the earth, and all high mountains under the heavens were covered. The waters rose and covered the mountains to the depth of more than 15 cubits. Every living thing on land perished, birds, livestock, wild animals, all the creatures that swarm the earth, and all of mankind. Everything on dry land that had the breath of life in its nostrils died. Everything living on the face of the earth was wiped out. People and animals and the creatures that move along the ground, and the birds were wiped from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those with him in the ark. The waters flooded the earth for 150 days. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and the livestock that were here with him in the ark. And he sent a wind over the earth, and the waters receded. Now the springs of the deep and the floodgates of the heavens had been closed, and the rain had stopped falling from the sky. The water receded steadily from the earth. At the end of 150 days, the water had gone down. And on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The water continued to recede until the 10th month, and on the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains became visible. After 40 days, Noah opened a window he had made in the ark and sent out a raven, and it kept flying back and forth until the water had dried up on the earth. Then he sent out a dove to see if the water had receded from the surface of the ground, but the dove could find nowhere to perch because there was water over all the surface of the earth. So it returned to Noah in the ark. He reached out his hand and took the dove and brought it back to himself in the ark. He waited 7 more days, and again he sent out the dove from the ark. When the dove returned to him in the evening, there in its beak was a freshly plucked olive leaf. Then Noah knew that the water had receded from the earth. He waited 7 more days, and he sent the dove out again, but this time it did not return to him. By the first day of the first month of Noah's 601st year, the water had dried up from the earth. Noah removed the covering from the ark and saw that the surface of the ground was dry. By the 27th day of the 2nd month, the earth was completely dry. Then God said to Noah, "Come out of the ark, for you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring out every kind of living creature that is with you, the birds, the animals, and all the creatures that move along the ground, so they can multiply on earth and be fruitful and increase in number on it." So Noah came out together with his sons and his wife and his sons' wives, all the animals and all the creatures that move along the ground, and all the birds. Everything that moves on land came out of the ark, one kind after another. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, taking some of all the clean animals and clean birds. He sacrificed burnt offerings on it. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma and said in his heart, "Never again will I curse the ground because of humans, even though every inclination of the human heart is evil from childhood. And never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done." Then God said to Noah, as you can read in Genesis chapter 9, verse 12, "This is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth and the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all living creatures of every kind. Never again will the waters become a flood to destroy all life. Whenever the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will see it and remember that everlasting covenant between God and all living creatures of every kind on earth." Okay, now moving on with the story here. They're now out of the ark. They're moving on with their life, and now Noah's planting a vineyard, as we see here in Genesis chapter 9, verse 20. And I'm going to read that to you right now. "Noah, a man of the soil, proceeded to plant a vineyard. When he drank some of its wine, he became drunk and lay uncovered inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it across their shoulders, and they walked it backward and covered their father's naked body. Their faces turned the other way, so they would not see their father naked. When Noah awoke from his wine and found out what his youngest son had done to him, he said, 'Cursed be to Canaan, the lowest of slaves he will be to his brothers.' He also said, 'Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shimei. May Canaan be the slave of Shem. May God extend the territory of Japheth. May Japheth live in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his slave.' After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. Altogether, Noah lived 950 years, and then he died. Now, this wasn't a standard story about a typical sin that people struggle with, or something that people struggle with daily, but this definitely has a lot of lessons to be learned. So instead of doing a standard sermon, I thought I'd just break down 10 lessons we can learn from Noah. And because there are a couple different lessons, and they're all there, but there's just not one I would say in particular. So let me break them down for you. The 10 lessons we can learn from the story of Noah. So the first lesson we learned is that we can grieve the heart of God with our sin. Now, what does that mean exactly? Well, God is our Father, and He loves His children. And just like any father, our disobedience and sin grieve His heart. In Noah's days, the people were so sinful that God's heart was deeply grieved. God was grieved by sin then, and He's grieved by sin now. He just can't ignore it because He is holy and a righteous God. And as we read in Genesis chapter 6, verses 5 through 6, the Lord saw the great wickedness of the human race had become on earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was evil at all time. The Lord regretted that He made human beings on earth, and His heart was deeply troubled. You can just see it right there. I mean, that is exactly what was the turning point of what made Him want to create the flood, the earth, and destroy it. Is that how He grieved in His heart the sin of man and men not wanting to please Him. Number 2 is God always provides a way for us to begin again with Him. As we read in Genesis chapter 7, 11 through 13, in the 600th day of the year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the second month, on that day all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of heavens were opened, and rain fell on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. And on that very day Noah and his sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth, together with his wife and the wives of his 3 sons, entered the ark, and the Lord shut them in. Right there is God providing a way for Noah and his family to begin again. And He provides a same way for us to begin again with Him through getting baptized and accepting Jesus Christ into our heart. We can have a way to begin again and start a new life and to be saved. While others may have to perish and go to hell, we can be saved by accepting Jesus and God in our heart and being baptized. Third thing we can learn is that we will not always understand God and His ways, but we can trust Him. As it says in Isaiah chapter 55, verses 8 through 9, God says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? You know, he's above and he can see and know everything, and we're down below. And he has a better perspective than us. So, just like Noah must have wondered if God's plan was best, because after all, worldwide flood seemed very harsh. However, God had an eternal plan in mind. He knew the sinful state of the world was self-destructive and loved the world enough to intervene. His plan ultimately provided a way for Noah and his family and you and me to come to salvation. God sees the bigger picture, so we must trust him even when we don't understand his ways. Number 4 is we can obey God even if the world thinks we're crazy. In Genesis chapter 7, verses 5 through 7, and Noah did all that the Lord commanded him. Noah was 600 years old, and Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives entered the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Now, Noah must have faced a lot of opposition. He's 600 years old, and his family, his friends, and people around him, and his community could have said that, you know, you're crazy. But yet Noah obeyed and held fast to what was right, and he was obedient to God. So sometimes obeying God and means believing and doing things that the world won't understand, and we need to know that God honors our obedience to him. Fifth thing we can learn is all things are possible with God. In Ephesians chapter 3, verses 20 through 21, it says, "Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. To him be the glory in the church and in Christ Jesus through all generations forever and ever. Amen." As Christians, we believe that the Bible is 100% true. And that means we believe in the flood that covered the whole earth. We believe that God warned and instructed and protected Noah and his family and loved creation enough to send the animals into the ark to protect them. God is able to do far above what we know, expect, and even understand. And that is true of him then and true of him today. He didn't know his situation, and he can do it in yours. 6, God's timing is different than ours. Noah had no idea how long he'd be in the ark. And can you imagine being shut up in that ark, in a huge floating boat with your family and a massive number of animals? And we might not always know God's timetable or layout of his plans for us, but we do know that his timing is good. Again, he has an eternal perspective in mind. We may long for him to operate on our timetable, but we know that his timing isn't the same as ours, and his plan is best. 7, God remembers us in distress. In Genesis chapter 8, verse 1, "But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and livestock that were with him in the ark, and he sent a wind over the earth, and the waters receded." See, God never leaves us or forsakes us. Sometimes we not feel him as near us at times, but he is with us. He remembers us and he sees us. He's with us at our hardest times. He remembered Noah and his family in the ark, and he was there, and he'll be there with us in the hard places in our life as well. Number 8 is God is a promise keeper. And God said, "This is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all generations to come." Genesis chapter 9, verse 12. And that sign, of course, was the rainbow. Now, God is a promise keeper. All of his words are true. Not one of his promises can be broken. He is good to his word, and his covenants are eternal. And he is always faithful, always. He kept his promise to Noah, and he's going to keep his promise to you and me. 9, there's always reason to give thanks. Genesis chapter 8, verses 20 through 21. Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some of the clean animals and clean birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, and then God blessed Noah and his sons. Now, the first thing Noah did when the ark was open was build an altar to give thanks. His family just endured a whole year, yet immediately he thanked God. He could have grumbled and complained about all the time that they've been there and what they've been through, but instead he chose to give God blessing for it. So life's not always going to be easy, and we may endure a lot of lengthy, difficult seasons in our life, but just like Noah, we can always find reason to give thanks because we are always blessed. And there's always blessings in our life to be thankful for. And finally, number 10, God loves us and has a plan for us that is for our eternal good. Just as in Genesis chapter 9, verse 9, God says, I now establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you. And God has this covenant with us to this day to save us through Jesus Christ. We can get baptized and be saved with him and not have to perish. But the perishing is going to be in hell this time, not the flood. So what we want to do is save our soul, believe and obey, accept Jesus Christ in our heart, get baptized, and be saved. In closing, today we learned about Noah's Ark and the story. And just to go over the lessons we learned is that sin does grieve God's heart. God always provides a way for us to begin again with him. We may not understand God, but we can trust him. We can follow God and not the world. All things are possible with God. God's timing is different than ours, but God does remember our problems, and he keeps his promises. Always give thanks to God, because he does have a plan for everyone and for us. And Noah had faith, and he never doubted God, and neither should you. I want to end the sermon with an invitation. And this invitation is in Mark chapter 16, verse 16, and it's saying, whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned. And I offer that invitation to you is to be baptized today to be saved. Accept Jesus Christ into your heart. Have all the blessings that God can give you in having that relationship with him. And it's so great and powerful. So I ask you a question. Are you ready to be baptized? And if you are, please contact me or a preacher at your local Church of Christ to be baptized today. Do not wait a second longer.